The rest of the world went into hyper collapse, and then that'll peak out, and then, that'll be the end.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Max Keiser on the Max and Stacy Report talking about the fall of the US dollar and the new Russian-Chinese currency. Keiser says that the US is on a fast track to complete global isolation. Because the US empire was shaped on electronic currency and the derivatives taking over the oil market, it will simply disappear into the ethos. The US market has exchanged all manufacturing capacity for financialization, which depends on the global dollar standard. If the world turns from that standard, this will cause the US's plan to be terminated. Let's listen to Max Keiser as he gives his take on the new Russia-China currency and the market's impact on Bitcoin. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
Russian-Ukraine skirmish that began in February, the world said, oh my goodness, Russia's going to be isolated, but now it looks like the US is the one that's going to be isolated, and maybe the UK would be the isolation on the cake of the isolation. And you talk about these empires come and go, and reserve currencies come and go, and the dollar is on the way out. But uniquely with the dollar, unlike in previous times, let's say when the British pound gave way to the US dollar, it was at the tail end of a war, World War I. Specifically. Then they had the Suez Canal crisis that cemented their loss of empire, and it was the rise of the US empire, but that was all very kinetic. There were men and guns and land. This is an interesting empire that will dissolve here because it'll simply fade away into the ethos. The US empire is built on electronic paper. It's built on the derivatives that have been taken the place of the oil market. You know, for every barrel of oil, there's something like 60,000 worth of derivative barrels of oil. And the US all controlled this through the New York Fed and interest rates and very cheap money. Okay, so in February, one of the big players, Russia, said, nope. Time out. You can't price your oil in paper money anymore. We're going to price it based on the intrinsic cost of oil on the world markets. And the US dollar went into hyperdrive because the rest of the world went into hyper collapse, and then that'll peak out, and then that'll be the end. So that's all happening now. Well, it's like Elon Musk said, if you want stuff, you have to make stuff, right? So the US swapped all their manufacturing capacity for financialization, for money. And that relied on a world global standard of the US dollar. And so if the world goes off a US dollar standard as it is now, as of February 24th, then the strategy looks like it's come to its end game.
Keiser believes that the inflation that's been building up over the past year will continue to rise for the next decade. This is because Russia and China are competing by printing fiat currencies, which will make all commodities rise. Because these global forces are battling, Bitcoin will benefit greatly. Because it's impossible to print wealth, Bitcoin will rise in value. With Bitcoin vexing nations, it's becoming a clear indicator that it's perfect money while the other currencies are faltering.
Another prediction we can make here with almost 100% certainty is that inflation that's broken out here in the last 12 months will continue to build over the next decade because now you've got Russia-China is going to try to compete by printing a lot of fiat money, which will put the basis for those commodities like oil and food up in fiat money terms. What the great news here is that this is how we get to Bitcoin $200,000, $300,000 a coin, as these two major powers try to fight each other by outprinting each other. So this is fantastic news for Bitcoin. It's terrible news if you don't have Bitcoin. People call some of us toxic Bitcoin maximalists for simply pointing this out. But look, folks, if you have these superpowers trying to print each other to death by fiat money issuance, and it drives Bitcoin to $500,000 or $1 million a coin, that's not being a toxic Bitcoin maximalist. That's just being real. That's as real as a bebop phrase coming out of the fingers of Thelonious Monk in 1962. You can't not hear it once you hear it. It's the truth as Thelonious would pound it out on those keyboards. It's not any equivocation there. It's the bebop truth. And I'm speaking the bebop truth, and the bebop truth is this. You cannot print yourself to prosperity, and this is fantastic for Bitcoin. Did Bitcoin cause these nations to go insane? Yes, it did, because it's perfect, and they're flawed. And that's what we're dealing with, And unless you understand those 88 ivories on that keyboard in the way that Thelonious Monk did, you're at a loss. Fortunately, with Bitcoin, you can get over the hump and simply achieve the Bitcoin singularity and touch that synchronicity oh so beautifully. Like I'm alluding to with my clever word usage, it's just more of the same. Look, the purchasing power of whatever fiat money you create, it's not going to do anything to the dollar. It's just going to ruin the purchasing power of the people under whom you're supposed to be helping, not hurting with your fiat money. I mean, it'll be kind of a great news story that China and Russia are creating some new fiat money, but ultimately it's kind of like rearranging the fiat money deck chairs on the fiat money Titanic. Talking about fiat money and influence, that sure, you're going to get some influence if you have this new Russia-China fiat money, but you haven't solved the basic problem of fiat money. So what Russia and China are looking at US dollar hegemony, and they think they understand what the problem is. They think, oh, we need to get our own fiat money and that would solve all of our problems. No, you're just going to recreate the problems, but it's going to have different colored paper. It's just going to look different, but it's the same problem. I would also like to interject that coming out of Russia recently have been comments negative toward Bitcoin. So we know for a fact now that the situation there is hopeless. I think we can safely say with a 100% certainty that this new currency being printed by Russia, China will be overprinted. They will do exactly the same thing that the U.S. has done with the U.S. dollar. You become arrogant when you can print without consequences, and you become an arrogant fool. And this is what awaits them. They won't have the kind of the tension of competing anymore with the U.S. They'll simply go down the same imperial path of overprinting toward collapse themselves. So, I mean, good luck with that.
Keiser states that the fiat being printed is only going to destroy the purchasing power of the people that the currency was created to help. The new Russian-Chinese currency still hasn't solved the fundamental issue with all fiat money. Keiser says that all this will do is recreate the same problems, just in a new currency. He's confident the new Russian-Chinese fiat will be overprinted, and because of pride, they think money can be created without any repercussions. Keiser says that this currency will go down the exact same arrogant path of overprinting and collapse that other currencies have gone down. What do you guys think about Max Keiser's opinion on the new Russia-China currency? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.